Formula One, the pinnacle of motorsport where legends are born and careers are often defined by mere milliseconds. But what happens when a driver's career doesn't last long enough to even make a mark? What happens when a driver steps into the spotlight only to be pulled away before they even get a chance to truly compete? Well, this is the story of Yuji Ide, a man who entered the world of Formula One with dreams of glory only to be banned after just 4 races. His story is a cautionary tale, a reminder of how ruthless the sport can be. In just 4 races, Yuji Ide's Formula One career was over before it even began. But how did it all go so wrong? What led to his infamous ban? And why was he deemed unfit to compete? So buckle up as we dive deep into one of the strangest stories in F1 history. But before we get into it, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more fascinating stories from the world of motorsport. Yuji Ide's dream was to one day race in Formula One. Born in Japan, Ide worked his way through the ranks of Japanese motorsport. He competed in Formula Nippon, Japan's premier single-seater series, and also had stints in Japanese Formula 3. He wasn't the kind of driver to set the world on fire, but he was respected. In 2005, Ide had his best season yet, finishing second in the Formula Nippon Championship. In Japan, this kind of result doesn't go unnoticed, and it certainly caught the attention of a brand new Formula One team, Super Aguri. Created to appeal to Japanese fans, Super Aguri was set to compete in F1 in 2006 with Takuma Sato, Japan's most popular F1 driver, as their lead driver. But the team needed a second driver, and for Yuji Ide, this was his big break, a dream come true. Imagine the excitement, going from Japanese Formula Nippon to Formula One in just a few months. For Ide, this was the opportunity he had worked so hard for, but what he didn't realise was just how big the leap would be, and how unprepared he truly was for the challenge that lay ahead. From the very beginning, the odds were stacked against Ide. Super Aguri, while ambitious, was a team built on a shoestring budget. Their car, the SA05, was a heavily modified Arrows A23 chassis from 2002. That's right, the car was 4 years old and nowhere near the level of performance of the top teams like Ferrari or McLaren. It was slow, unreliable, and not competitive. But even more than the car, the biggest challenge Ide faced was the leap in competition. Formula One is a different beast altogether. The speed, the technology, the physical demands, it's like nothing else in motorsport. For a driver to transition to F1, they usually spend years honing their craft in lower tier series like Formula 2, GP2 or Formula 3. These series help them get used to the high performance cars and the level of competition they'll face in Formula 1. But for Yuji Ide, he skipped most of these crucial steps. He had never competed in Europe, he had never raced on many of the circuits in the F1 calendar, and he wasn't familiar with the intricacies of F1 technology. He was thrown into the deep end. From the first practice session, it was clear that Ide was struggling. He was well off the pace, finishing last in almost every session. His lack of experience was evident. He couldn't find the rhythm of the car, his braking was inconsistent, and his lap times were far slower than his teammate Takuma Sato. The gap between them was enormous, and for Ide, it was a sign of the difficulties to come. Formula One is not a place for mercy. In this world, you're either fast or you're out. And for Ide, the clock was ticking. In Bahrain, he was the slowest driver on the grid, and things didn't get much better in the next race in Malaysia. Again, Ide was far behind the rest of the field, and questions started to arise. Was he really ready for Formula One? Did he have the skills to compete at this level? The pressure was building, not just from within the team but from the media and fans as well. Ide was driving the slowest car on the grid, but his performance was still lacking compared to his teammate. He wasn't just slow, he was struggling to control the car, missing braking points and constantly battling with the car's handling. The demands of F1 were starting to take their toll. For any driver, confidence is everything, and when you're constantly being criticised, that confidence can evaporate quickly. For Ide, the scrutiny was relentless. Every lap, every mistake, every slow corner was magnified. The media began questioning whether he should even be in F1 at all. The pressure was intense, and it only got worse as the season continued. Formula One isn't just mentally demanding, it's physically brutal. Drivers are subjected to G-forces of up to 6 times the force of gravity, particularly during cornering and braking. It takes years of physical conditioning to handle the strain. The neck muscles, the core strength, the stamina, all of it has to be top level for a driver to perform at their best. And for Yuji Ide, this was yet another hurdle. Most drivers enter Formula One in their early 20s after spending years in lower categories, building up the physical conditioning required for the sport. But Yuji Ide was 31 years old when he made his F1 debut, older than most rookies, and his fitness wasn't at the level needed to cope with the physical demands of F1. During his debut in the first Grand Prix of the season in Bahrain in early 2006, Ide had the worst of it as he could barely catch up with the racers and was left far behind most of the time. He had barely made it through to the final round, and he made it through last, which depicted the struggles that he was going through. The following races were not as successful as the above races. He worsened his qualifying results, and in the races, he was just lagging behind most of the competing cars. After each race, the strain was evident. Ide was physically exhausted, struggling to keep up with the demands of driving a Formula One car for nearly 2 hours. The mental stress only compounded his physical struggles, and every mistake, every slow lap time eroded his confidence even further. Formula One isn't just about speed, it's about endurance, strength, and the ability to push through both physical and mental fatigue. For Ide, the strain was overwhelming. The breaking point came at the San Marino Grand Prix, the 4th race of the season. By now, Ide was desperate to show that he could compete in Formula One, but in his desperation, things went horribly wrong. At the start of the race, Ide collided with Dutch driver Christian Albers, causing a massive crash. Albers' car flipped over and skidded down the track upside down. It was a terrifying moment, one that could have ended in disaster. Fortunately, Albers was unhurt, but the crash raised serious questions about Ide's driving ability. Formula One is dangerous, and every move a driver makes must be calculated and precise. Ide's lack of control, his poor decision making, and his inexperience had led to a major incident. And for the FIA, the governing body of Formula One, this was a step too far. After the San Marino crash, the FIA began to review Ide's performances. They'd been watching him closely since the start of the season, and the crash with Albers was the final straw. In an unprecedented move, the FIA requested that Ide's super license be revoked. Without this license, a driver cannot compete in Formula One. Effectively, Ide was banned from the sport. 4 races, that's all it took. That is when Super Aguri officially came out, stating that Ide would be acting only as a test driver for this team while his Formula One racing career was effectively over. He never got back into a racing seat in Formula One, and his time in the sport lasted only 4 races. The decision shocked the Formula One community. It's rare for a driver to have their super license revoked, especially so early in the season. But for the FIA, this was about safety. Ide had shown that he was not ready for Formula One, and they couldn't take the risk of allowing him to continue racing. The ban was final. Yuji Ide's Formula One career was over before it had even really begun. After his brief and controversial stint in Formula One, Yuji Ide returned to Japan. There he continued racing in Formula Nippon and Super GT, 2 series where he was far more comfortable. In Japan, Ide was able to regain some of his confidence and enjoy a more successful career, competing at a high level in his home country. But his time in Formula One would always be remembered for the wrong reasons. In Japan, Ide found some redemption. He achieved respectable results in domestic racing series and continued to compete for several more years. But for Formula One fans, his name will always be associated with those infamous 4 races, the struggles, the crash at San Marino, and the ban that ended his F1 career. It's a story that highlights just how unforgiving Formula One can be. For every successful driver, there are many who fall by the wayside. So what can we learn from Yuji Ide's story? Formula One is a sport that demands the highest level of skill, preparation, and mental toughness. Ide's journey was one of ambition, but also of misfortune and missed opportunities. Could he have succeeded with more preparation, or was his F1 career doomed from the start? Well, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Now, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more incredible stories from the world of motorsport. We'll see you in the next video.